to Adventures in Preservation, Saving Architectural Heritage Around the Globe. Hi, my name is Emily. I want to share with you who we are, what we do, and how you can get involved. What we try to do at Adventures in Preservation is save the world's architectural heritage as we support community-driven preservation. We don't want one without the other. Because when we can save a building, we can actually save a community and generate economic, social, cultural, environmental, and educational benefits. So it's not just buildings, it's about the communities that we're preserving as well. First, we shape our buildings and they shape us. The wise Winston Churchill said this, but this talks about the sense of place we get from our historic buildings. You know where you are in the world because of what you see. If you're in Paris, of course you see the Eiffel Tower. If you're in your hometown, you might see that house in the corner, that gas station, that courthouse, whatever it is that lets you know where you are. This is the important sense of place that we seek to preserve. And that's a finite resource. Talking about resources, as we become more and more sustainable as communities, we want to talk about the fact that the greenest building is the one that is already built. We don't want to tear things down, waste all that embodied energy in the building materials just to build new structures that probably aren't going to be as nice. So it's important that we take into consideration how sustainable it is to reuse our buildings, as important as it is to keep them around so we know where we are in the world. Back to our goal of saving the world's architectural heritage. Well, we want to save it with this concept of volunteer vacations, where you get to come, not just go to a place, not just look at its buildings, but have a hand in actually restoring them. And when we do this, you can help these communities that the buildings are in and the people who live there as well. So why volunteer with us? We know you have a lot of places you can spend your time and money. Well, it's because we really combine community development, meeting fantastic people and volunteers, exploring new destinations, and we do it for all the right reasons. You never know what you might learn. In addition to building with historic building materials, you'll also discover cultures and awareness and experiences that you never thought you could have. Oh, and you'll have some fun too. With Adventures in Preservation, history is in your hands. Next, I'd like to tell you about a few projects that we've done and a few that are upcoming. The first is one that we did in September 2011 in Albania, which was a war-torn country for many years, but it has this fantastic Albanian and Ottoman heritage. Lovely city views. This is a place that has been a melting pot of cultures, specifically Christian and Muslim, which is why the war happened, but is something that we're working to save and integrate once again and help the people who live there do that as well. We did work at the Baba Meto house, which is a fantastic home, as you can see, and what we did there specifically was restore a wooden staircase. Before we ever take anything apart, we of course document it entirely, and we learned how to recarve elements of the staircase here, which is really fantastic to be able to do something like that with your hands. And we also restored the plaster. When you take apart plaster, it can be quite hard to put back together, so you have to do it very carefully. And we also wanted to figure out what the historic finishes were on the walls. So not just tack up any old thing, but be accurate to what the house once looked like. And as you can see, it's just fantastic. Upcoming in 2012, we're going to go back to Albania and work at this fantastic Skanduli house. This looks not in the kind of shape the last house looked at, but this needs a lot of maintenance too. And we're going to be using the lovely wooden ceiling and fireplace as a training ground for other homeowners in the area so they can learn how to preserve and restore their own houses. So it's a really neat opportunity to see an intact Ottoman era Albanian house and also to help the community improve their other buildings. We also do a lot of work here in the US. This is in Cairo, Illinois in 2009. We went here and restored shotgun style houses. specifically one, to use as a chamber of commerce and to start this whole rejuvenation and renovation program that they want to start there, using the historic buildings for low-income housing. Fantastic green porch. We went to Ghana in July 2007 and worked on 2 projects there. The first was rebuilding a stone wall with proper historic materials. Often over time, as maintenance is done on buildings, it's done with incompatible materials. So we took out the incompatible materials and put back the proper sand, lime, mortar that was there originally. And this house wasn't just a house, it was also a gravesite for a really important medicine man in the community. We also worked on, I don't have a photo of this, but we also worked on colonial era house more at the port city that's going to be used for a culinary school. Upcoming in May of 2011, we're going to be going to Virginia to work on an old Texaco station and restore its windows and lighting. Here's Team Texaco on the right there. This is going to be a neat, more recent past project. And as part of the trip, you have the opportunity to go to a behind-the-scenes tour of Colonial Williamsburg. Back in April 2007, we went to Serravalle, Italy, and worked on a monastery there. We worked to assess the condition of the stone columns in the cloister there, and also we had the opportunity to work with a leading expert in fresco restoration. You can see her on the right, that's Alma Oroton. This is her hometown, and interestingly enough, we found that the frescoes weren't frescoes at all, but a different painting technique where you apply paint to dry plaster, not wet plaster. But nonetheless, we're coming up with a restoration plan, and the work that our volunteers there did was very important for the future of this building in this town. We're going to be going to nearby Slovenia in September, August and September of 2011. This is just a few hours away from Serravalle, Italy. And here we're going to be working on this house, and not just the house, but we actually are going to work on something else too. But first, we're going to restore the plaster, repair some of that, so that we can make this building a museum for some fantastic artifacts that elderly curators have been collecting here in the village, Ponikva. This is specifically to their town, and they want it for the next generation, so we're going to help them do that too. So if any of this looked interesting and you want to get involved, join us. AdventuresInPreservation.org has tons more photos, testimonials, trip details, both past and upcoming. You can also find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. We'd love you to get involved. We'd love to see you at our next preservation adventure. Any questions? Feel free to email us, info@adventuresinpreservation.org. Short